Ethan Cole lived with his 8-year-old daughter Lily in a small apartment above a laundromat on Crescent Avenue. Every morning he woke up before sunrise, made breakfast, packed Lily's school lunch, and walked her to school. He always kissed her forehead and reminded her to smile, even on bad days. Then, he went to the diner, where he worked as a waiter. The little bell above the door greeted him with the same sound each day. It was a sound that meant hard work and quiet dreams. Ethan was known at the diner for his kindness. He never complained when customers came in late, and he always remembered their favorite orders. Many regulars liked the way he listened when they talked. He often wrote small notes for Lily between orders, drawing funny faces in the corners to make her laugh later. His life was not easy, but he was proud of it because everything he did was for her. Rain had been falling for days, tapping against the windows of the diner and leaving puddles across the sidewalks. On one particular night, the rain came down hard, the kind that made the air smell like earth and city dust. The yellow light from the diner sign flickered against the wet street. Ethan wiped down the last table, helped the cook close the kitchen, and hung his apron behind the counter. His shift had ended late, and he was tired, but he did not mind walking home through the rain. It gave him a quiet moment before returning to the soft hum of his daughter's bedtime routine. As he stepped outside, the cold rain fell onto his shoulders, opened his old umbrella, and started down the street. The city glowed in reflections from car headlights, shop signs, and the thin rivers running along the curbs. Most people hurried past him, shielding their faces from the storm. Ethan walked calmly, his thoughts drifting toward what story he would tell Lily before bed. She always asked for one about heroes, not fairy tale ones, but people who did small, brave things. Near the corner of Maple and 3rd, Ethan caught sight of a figure by the bus stop. Through the curtain of rain, a young woman stood without an umbrella, her hair pasted to her face, her clothes soaked. She looked lost, holding one arm around herself. Cars splashed water near her shoes, but she did not move away. Something in the shape of her shoulders made Ethan slow down. There was a look of quiet defeat in her posture that pulled at him. He hesitated a moment, then walked closer. "Miss, are you all right?" he asked gently. Her voice was calm, warm, like someone talking to a friend. The woman looked up. Her eyes were wide, uncertain. "My phone died," she said in a shaky voice. "I missed the last bus. I don't know what to do." Ethan noticed she was shivering. Without thinking, he held out his umbrella and then slipped off his jacket. "Here, take this. You'll catch a cold like that." "I can't take your jacket," she said. "You can," he answered with a small smile. "I've got a roof waiting for me. You just need to get somewhere safe." Her lips trembled, more from surprise than cold. "Thank you," she whispered. Ethan waved for a cab that had slowed at the light. When it stopped, he opened the door for her. "Let the driver know where to go. He'll take you," he said. The driver gave an understanding nod and the woman climbed in, clutching the jacket to her chest. She looked at Ethan through the rain-covered window as the car began to move. For a brief moment, their eyes met again. There was something soft there, like gratitude mixed with disbelief that anyone in this world still stopped to help. Then the car turned onto another street and vanished under the blur of falling rain. Ethan stood there a moment longer, umbrella dripping beside him. The rain felt colder now, but inside he felt warm. He was not sure why he had stopped, yet he knew he could not have done otherwise. When he finally started home, the street seemed quieter, the lights dimmer, and the sound of the rain somehow more peaceful. That night, after drying off and checking on Lily, he sat by the small kitchen window. The rain still fell against the glass, making tiny streams that glowed in the streetlight. He thought about the woman's face, the way her voice had trembled, the way she had looked at him before the cab drove away. He did not even know her name. Still, he hoped she was home safe. Then he turned off the light and whispered a quiet goodnight to the rain. Ethan woke early the next morning, the sound of rain still faint against the window. The sky outside was gray and pale, as if the world had not finished waking up. Lily was still asleep, her small face half buried in the blanket. Ethan smiled and brushed a strand of hair from her forehead before starting breakfast. He cracked eggs into a pan, poured milk into a cup, and set the table with quiet care. There was comfort in these small tasks, a rhythm that made the world feel steady. Still, his thoughts kept slipping back to the young woman from the night before. He saw her pale face, wet hair, and the way she had looked at him with surprise and relief. He did not even know her name, but her image stayed in his mind like the aftertaste of something bittersweet. He told himself he was being foolish and that it was only a moment of kindness between strangers. Yet the memory hung near him through breakfast, through the walk to school, through the smell of coffee when he reached the diner. At the diner, everything was the same as always. The same morning regulars sat in the same booths ordering the same breakfast dishes. The cook shouted the same jokes from the kitchen. The radio played quiet old songs in the background. Ethan smiled at customers, refilled cups, carried plates, and nodded politely to coworkers. But behind his kind eyes, there was a flicker of thought. Who was she? Did she get home all right? Did she forget him already? During a short break, he sat beside the window with a cup of coffee and watched the people walking by. The rain had stopped, and thin sunlight pushed through the clouds. The streets sparkled in places where water still gathered. A woman passed wearing a blue coat, but it was not her. Two college students hurried past laughing. A courier rode his bike down the middle of the road. Ethan sighed and told himself again that chance meetings were just that, chance. In another part of the city, Claire Brooks opened her eyes to a soft gray light. Her jacket, the one that did not belong to her, hung neatly on a chair. She had draped it there last night after she came home in the cab that the kind stranger had found for her. Now, as she looked at it, she remembered the warmth of it and the calm certainty of the man's voice. Without that moment, she might have stood in the rain much longer, lost and frightened. She made tea and watched raindrops slide down her kitchen window. Life had not been easy for her lately. She had moved to the city hoping for a new start, but things had not worked as she imagined. Until a quiet man with kind eyes stopped and asked if she was all right. She touched the sleeve of the jacket with her fingertips and smiled. It smelled faintly of soap and coffee. She decided she would return it somehow. She did not know his name or where he worked, but she caught a glimpse of a name tag when he held the umbrella above her. She thought the tag said Ethan, but the letters had been blurred by rain. She repeated the name softly to herself, as though saying it might bring her closer to finding him again. That day, Claire went to her volunteer work at a small community center that offered art and reading classes for children. She loved painting with them, even when the supplies were old and the brushes frayed. As she sat among the children that afternoon, she found herself painting a dark street with splashes of yellow light. At the center of the painting stood two figures under an umbrella. Ethan, meanwhile, finished another long day at the diner. When he walked home, he stopped under the same corner where it had rained the night before. The puddle near the curb was smaller now, but it carried the reflection of the same streetlight. He looked around without knowing what he was searching for. Then he smiled, a small gentle curve of his lips, and whispered a quiet thank you to the night itself. Back at the apartment, Lily greeted him at the door, wrapping her arms around his waist. She asked for another story before bed. Ethan thought for a moment and told her one about a lost traveler who met a kind stranger in the rain and found her way home. Lily listened carefully, eyes wide. When the story ended, she said that maybe real heroes did not wear capes after all. Ethan kissed her forehead again and told her she was right. Then he watched the rain begin again outside, and the same memory quietly settled back into his heart, where it felt both distant and near at once. A week passed before the weather finally cleared. Ethan felt lighter as he walked with Lily after school. They carried a small bag of books and treats because Saturday was there, to visit the park and then stop for something sweet. Lily skipped beside him, talking all the way about the story she wanted to write for school. She said it was about a brave bird that helped a lost rabbit find home. Ethan smiled and told her it sounded like a good story. They reached the park, and Lily ran toward the swings. Ethan pushed her gently, and she laughed each time she went higher. It was moments like this that made him forget how tired he was. The laughter, the warmth, the way Lily's eyes shone. Time passed easily in the sunlight. When they finally left, they decided to stop at the little bookstore cafe near their apartment. It was a quiet place, with soft chairs, a smell of baked bread, and shelves filled with stories from every corner of the world. Inside, the cafe was warm and lively. People chatted softly, pages rustled, and the coffee machine hummed from behind the counter. Ethan ordered a cup of black coffee for himself and a cup of hot cocoa with extra cream for Lily. She ran to the children's section, her favorite corner, where small tables and bright cushions were set near the window. The window looked out toward the street, where evening light settled on rows of cars and passing bicycles. Ethan took a seat nearby, relaxing in the calm. He watched Lily flip through colorful books, whispering parts of the stories to herself as though she were reading to an invisible friend. He loved how easily she found joy in simple things. Then, without warning, Lily's eyes widened. She stopped flipping pages, turned completely toward the window, and gasped. Her voice came out in a mix of surprise and excitement. "Dad, that's her? The rain lady?" Ethan turned his head in confusion at first. "What are you talking about?" he asked softly. Lily pointed toward a woman standing by the front display near the window. She was dressed neatly in a pale green coat and carried a small paper bag. Her hair was tied back and her eyes were fixed on a painting in the store window. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. It was her, Claire. She looked different now, calm and dry, yet still had that same gentle sadness he had noticed before. For a second, Ethan felt unsure of what to say or do. The moment seemed both ordinary and unreal. I had thought about her many times, wondered if he would ever see her again, maybe sensing that someone was watching. Their eyes met. This time there was no rain between them, no cab, no umbrella, just a quiet air filled with surprise and recognition. Claire blinked, then smiled in a shy, uncertain way. She took a small step closer. "It's you," she said. Her voice was clearer now, warm and strong. Ethan nodded, still half disbelieving. "I never thought I'd see you again," he admitted. Lily ran over before either of them could say more. "I told you, Dad. It's the rain lady. You gave her your jacket," she said proudly, as if she had just uncovered a great mystery. Claire laughed softly, kneeling to Lily's level. "And you must be Lily," she said kindly. "Your dad was brave that night. I never forgot what he did." Lily grinned. "He always helps people. He says being kind makes the world smaller." Ethan felt his face warm. "She remembers everything," he said, smiling down at his daughter. They sat together at a small round table. Claire ordered tea and thanked Ethan again for helping her. She told him she had wanted to return his jacket but had no way of finding him. She explained that she worked at a community art center and that she liked to stop by this bookstore on weekends. They discovered they did not live far apart. The conversation flowed easily, as though they had known each other longer than a single rainstorm. Lily sat quietly for a few minutes, sipping her cocoa, watching them talk with an expression only children have when they see something special forming. She could sense something in the air, a soft connection between her father and this woman he had once helped without expecting anything in return. When they left the cafe, the sun was dipping low, and the air had a golden tint. Claire waved goodbye, but promised to meet them again soon. Ethan held Lily's hand as they walked home. Ethan smiled at her words. Maybe it was. Maybe the rain had simply washed two lost pieces of life together. He did not know what would come next, but for the first time in a long while, he felt something bright and possible waiting ahead. The night breeze was cool, the streets softly glowing, and somewhere deep inside, the memory of that rainy night had turned into something warmer and newer. The next few days felt brighter for Ethan. The city seemed to move differently, lighter than before. He had not felt this kind of peace in years. Life still followed the same routine, but his thoughts were often somewhere else. 8. He caught himself smiling while pouring coffee at the diner. Even his coworkers noticed and teased him gently. He laughed it off but did not deny it. Inside, he felt something new, something that made each day worth noticing. Claire kept her promise and met Ethan and Lily again the following weekend. They went to the same cafe, the one filled with the smell of melted chocolate and books. Lily brought her favorite drawing to show Claire, a picture of 3 people walking under a big umbrella. Claire smiled when she saw it. She told Lily that it was the most beautiful drawing she had ever seen. Ethan watched the two interact. It filled his chest with quiet warmth. Claire had a way of making Lily laugh that reminded him of how happy children could be when they felt safe. As time went on, they kept meeting. Sometimes at the cafe, sometimes at the park, and once even at the diner when Claire stopped by after her art classes. Ethan tried his best to stay calm each time she came, but he could not stop the feeling that spread through him when she smiled. It was gentle, like sunlight through rain clouds. They talked about simple things at first, how their weeks were going, the strange habits of customers at the diner, or the stories of children in the art center. Claire told him about her students, about how some of them were shy at first but slowly opened up when they painted their dreams. She said she loved how colors could tell stories that words sometimes could not. Ethan listened closely. He admired her passion, how she spoke about art with light in her eyes. In turn, Claire asked about the diner and how long he had been working there. Ethan told her about his life before becoming a single father, how he once wrote songs but stopped when he could no longer find time for it. Claire seemed curious. "Do you still write music?" she asked one evening, as they sat on a park bench while Lily played nearby. Ethan shook his head. "Not really. Life got busy. I guess I let that part of me fall behind." She thought for a moment, then said softly, "Maybe it's still there somewhere, waiting for you to find it again." The way she said it stayed with him long after they parted that day. That night, when Lily was asleep, Ethan picked up his old guitar from the corner of the living room. Dust covered its surface. He tuned it slowly and played a few chords. The sound was rough, but it filled the room with something tender and true. He hummed to the rhythm of the rain tapping on the window. And for the first time in years, the song felt like it had meaning again. From then on, he started writing small bits of music in between his shifts. Claire sometimes visited the diner during his break, and they would talk about anything that came to mind. She shared her sketches with him, and he shared his notes with her. It felt like they had built their own quiet corner of the world, a space untouched by hurry or noise. Lily noticed the change before anyone else. She would tell her friends from school that her dad smiled more now, that he liked a lady who painted pictures. She said it as if it was the most normal thing in the world. For Lily, love was simple. For Ethan, it was something he had almost forgotten how to believe in. And now, it was slowly returning through laughter, coffee, and shared stories. One afternoon when Claire invited Ethan and Lily to see the community center, they spent hours painting with the children. Lily's hands were covered in streaks of blue and yellow by the end, and Ethan laughed as she tried to paint a sun with too many rays. Claire watched the scene and felt something deep stir inside her, something she had locked away for too long. For once, she did not feel alone. As evening approached, they stood outside the center watching clouds roll in from the west. A faint drizzle began, just enough to make the air smell fresh. Claire looked at Ethan and said, "Seems the rain always shows up when we meet." Ethan smiled, pulling his jacket a little tighter. "Maybe the rain's just reminding us how it all began." She nodded, her eyes soft, and for a moment they stood there without speaking, listening to the gentle sound of the raindrops. It was not the stormy rain of their first meeting, but a calm rain, like the kind that meant comfort and renewal. As they said goodbye, Lily reached out and grabbed both their hands, linking them together. She grinned up at them and said, "We all fit." Ethan and Claire exchanged a quick look that neither could ignore. There, beneath the thin drizzle, it felt as if the world had slowed down just for them. The connection between them had become a quiet promise, shaped by kindness and carried forward by hope. Weeks turned into months, and the small bond between Ethan, Claire, and Lily grew stronger with each passing day. Life moved quietly, but with a new kind of happiness. Ethan no longer felt the heavy silence that once filled his evenings. Now there was laughter, music, and fresh colors. Claire came by the diner often, and sometimes brought small sketches for Lily. The three of them would sit in the corner booth while Ethan finished his shift. Afterward, they would walk together through the streets, talking about what they wanted to do next weekend. It was simple, but it felt complete. Ethan started playing his guitar regularly again. First it was only for himself, but soon he began to play small tunes for Lily and Claire. Lily loved to sing along even when she mixed the words. Claire said his songs reminded her of quiet places that made people believe in better days. Her words gave Ethan courage. One afternoon, he brought his notebook to the cafe where they first met again and showed her a short song he had written. She read it carefully, smiling as she turned each page. "You wrote this because of us," she said softly. Ethan nodded. He could not put it in any other way. The three often spent weekends together. They went to the park and sometimes visited Claire's art shows at the community center. Lily became her small helper, setting up paint jars and brushes, running around with joyful energy. She called Claire her best grown-up friend. People at the art center smiled at how close they had all become. Claire had been quiet before Ethan came into her life, but now everyone said she smiled more, that her laughter stayed longer in the halls. Ethan saw the way Claire's kindness touched others. When he watched her helping a nervous child draw or comforting a parent, he felt proud just to stand beside her. She made the world gentler wherever she went. He often thought about how one rainy night had changed everything. It still amazed him how a single moment could turn into something lasting. One Saturday evening, the three of them walked home from the art center under a sky full of soft clouds. The air smelled of wet soil after light rain. Lily ran ahead, skipping with excitement, saying she wanted to show them something at home. She carried a small square canvas wrapped in paper. When they reached the apartment, she set it on the table and peeled the paper back. It was a painting she had made with Claire earlier that day. The picture showed three figures walking under one umbrella. The man was holding the handle, the woman was beside him, and the small child's hands were holding both of theirs. The street around them glowed with yellow reflections from puddles. Lily beamed. "This is us," she said proudly. "I painted our family." Ethan looked at the painting for a long time. His eyes grew wet and he had to swallow before he spoke. "It's perfect," he whispered. He turned to Claire, who smiled shyly, but said nothing. Instead, she placed her hand gently on Lily's shoulder. They ate dinner together that night, laughing at Lily's jokes and telling stories from their week. When it was time for bed, Lily hugged Claire around the waist and said goodnight, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Claire kissed her hair lightly before leaving for the door. Ethan walked her downstairs. Outside, the evening air was cool. They stopped near the same corner where they had first met months ago. The streetlight above them flickered faintly, and the quiet buzz of the city moved in the distance. Claire turned to him. "Sometimes I think about that night," she said. "If you had Dante been there, I might still believe that people only pass each other without noticing." Ethan shook his head. "You would have made it home. You're stronger than you think," he answered. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the light in a way that made him forget the rest of the world. "Maybe," she said, "but I'm glad it was you." Ethan smiled, then reached for her hand. The moment felt easy, like something that had been waiting to happen. He did not say anything more. The silence between them was full, but peaceful. Weeks later, a new pattern settled into their lives. Claire often came over for dinner, and Lily sometimes fell asleep on her lap while Ethan quietly played his guitar. The sound of his music filled the room with warmth. Life was not perfect, but it was real and full of hope. The three of them learned that family did not always begin with blood. Sometimes it began with kindness and trust. As spring came, the rain returned again, gentle and steady. Ethan opened the window slightly and looked out at the wet streets below. He could hear Lily telling Claire a story about dragons in the other room. He smiled to himself, feeling a peace he had not known for years. The rain that once carried loneliness now sounded like home. Under that same sky, he understood what life had been trying to tell him all along. Sometimes love did not rush in with noise and storm. Sometimes it arrived quietly, carried by rain, waiting only for someone kind enough to notice. And when it stayed, it turned every ordinary day into something shining.